Welcome to the Ethos Effect podcast. After building and learning from failures,
we discovered our ethos and leveraged it
to scale, sell, and build again our seven-figure businesses.
Whether you're starting out or leveling up,
this podcast is your source for innovation and lasting impact.
Welcome back to the Ethos Effect. I am Donovan.
And I'm Chelsea Rikis. Thanks for joining us today.
Today we have on Bernadette Girvin. She is the CEO of GFG Solutions, which is a financial services firm that we know. They're close to us here in Orlando. And she also talked a lot about her passion project, which was food and
her farm.
Yeah, kind of a local, I think she called it a hobby farm, right? So what started out as a hobby and now is a business with a subscription model for chickens and all kinds of other animals. I thought it was funny. She said, my husband keeps yelling at me because I keep buying new animals. So I was like, I keep buying goats and donkey. I'm like, what? That's a weird thing to say.
Everyone should follow her on Instagram. It's the Band T CEO because she posts the cutest things about the animals at her farm. And yeah, she is a class act woman, really truly up to something bigger. She's scaled her company in 3 years. They went from 3 employees to 30 employees, which if you've done that, it's no joke. When I went to see her here in Orlando at her office recently, it was just bustling with people. Everybody was happy. You can tell that she's doing a great job building a great culture. I also find it interesting that she was on the LPGA tour for, I think, 3 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So multifaceted lady, a lot of good information to share. So, and I will add, I think we did talk about eggs for quite a while. So if you've ever wondered why some eggs are brown, some are white, some are blue, Donovan got you all the answers. You are welcome. Let's get into the show. And most importantly, an amazing guest today, Bernadette Girvin, CEO of GFG Solutions. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And I know you have a little guest.
My co-host, Zuzu.
Hi, Zuzu. For those of you that aren't watching on YouTube, Zuzu is a little 11-year-old Chihuahua.
Yeah, 4 pounds. Actually, like 3.11, but we round her up to
Wow.
4.
Bernadette had her in like a sling when she walked into the studio, and I didn't even notice. I gave her a hug and everything and had no idea that there was a dog hanging from her body.
She joined our family in December, adopted her from a local rescue because I have a soft spot for Chihuahuas, even though we have lots of big dogs at home. And this is literally all she wants to do all day is just sit on my lap. So now I have a companion with me everywhere I go. Yep.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad you're here today. As you know, the Ethos Effect podcast, it's all about entrepreneurs, your trailblazing journey, the challenges, the ups, the downs. Before we get into the business side, though, we were just prior having a really interesting conversation, and I think it would help our guests.
Yeah.
Donovan's got some pretty strong opinions on plant-based diets versus meat, eggs, all of that.
Yeah.
Do you want to set the stage for us?
No.
Well, you're the one with all the opinions on it.
I don't need that smoke. I'm not going to go tell the internet.
I know. She just.
I just got him canceled.
You did. Yeah.
No, I think everybody here just like a more balanced diet, not all carnivore, not all vegan.
Yeah.
Maybe just a well-rounded approach in all things in life. I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean. And I will caveat this conversation with, I am not a doctor. We don't claim to be experts at this. These are, a lot of the opinions that I have formed or things that I believe now are just based off of experiences that I have had, and my own unprofessional, my amateur research that I have done. But yeah, obviously GFG is my first business, but our second business has become the farm, and we got into it because of the health issues that I personally was going through after having kids. And, I had a 2.5-year-old, a newborn. I had started a brand new business with Claudio. So after you have kids, your hormones are all over the place. And then stress levels are at an all-time high because you're in this startup business and you're trying to figure it out. And I was getting sick all the time, like in the hospital, vomiting, like really bad gut health issues. And I couldn't figure out what was going on because every test was like, oh, yeah, I mean, your white blood cell count's a little high. Or, oh, yeah, maybe you've got a little bit of a fatty liver. Or, yeah, your esophagus isn't like great, but but it was nothing, like everything was
More
like
questions than answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything was fine. And I had it all: endoscopies, colonoscopies, abdominal MRIs, like everything. And like all that I ever walked away with was that I had like a little bit of sludge in my gallbladder and slightly fatty liver, which is like every American has that, right? And I knew like I had gained a lot of weight through pregnancies and I didn't lose it, and I wasn't sleeping well, and I was stressed, and I wasn't eating well. And so if you like put all of that stuff together, that is just a recipe for gut issues and hormone imbalance and all that sort of stuff. And so like all of my doctors, interestingly enough, kept saying, you got to get rid of the meat out of your diet. That's what's causing the fatty liver. That's what's causing the gallbladder issues. You need to go plant-based. And I was like, okay. And I have such a soft spot for animals as I started going down the rabbit hole of like
consciousness.
our food industry and what happens. I was like, oh my God, I'm not eating animals anymore. And so I went completely plant-based vegan for a while. And then
How long is a while?
I was a vegan for probably 1.5 to 2 years,
Wow.
which for me is a long time.
It's a long time.
No,
Because I grew
you're
up
living it.
Yeah, I grew up a meat eater. And like just trying to, for me, it's like substituting. I can substitute most anything, but cheese is like a really hard one to.
That stuff is so weird.
It's disgusting and it's gross. Yeah.
A little plastic for you.
Yeah. Right.
That's
Right. But it wasn't helping. Like nothing was making me better. So then I started reading, and going further down, like where our food comes from, how animals are raised, what they're fed, what is put on our vegetables and on the crops. And like, as we all are coming to realize, I think more and more, and the veil is pulled back on big food and big ag, like they're poisoning us essentially. And the animals that are being raised in these huge factory farms are being fed crap and
harmful steroids,
and they're living in horrible conditions. So if you have even a slight heart for animals, like you've got to care about the ethical treatment of them as well. And that's not like a cow is meant to roam and graze. A chicken is meant to scratch and peck. A pig is meant to root and wallow. And when they're not allowed to display those animal behaviors, they are not being the best animal version of themselves. Therefore, we're not getting the best meat out of them. And like we were talking about beforehand, I kept having people say, well, really the only way, because you go to Publix and you buy the Green Wise, or you go to Whole Foods and you buy the organic. But now there's this whole, there's a lot of information coming out about greenwashing on labels in a lot of these grocery stores. And what Whole Foods used to be, they are not anymore. Not here to bash Whole Foods, but what they get to consider organic or pasture raised is not what is an actually pasture raised animal. So anyway, everybody kept saying like really the only way to know where your food is coming from is go find a local farmer, like source it from a local farmer. And I was like,
him, right?
Yeah, I was like, what? How do you find a local farmer? I didn't know any farmers. Yeah. I live in College Park. Yeah. And so, and that's a whole other side subject about like the farming industry and how opaque it is and difficult and
farmers
and why that industry is struggling so much. So I decided to become a farmer and we bought our farm 2 years ago and started with eggs and then got into pasture poultry because I wanted to know exactly what my animals were eating, how they were being raised and treated, and on their one bad day, that it was a bad day in the most ethical way possible. And so, I mean, I can't even make it. Plus, just getting out of the city environment, breathing fresh air, not being polluted by noise and light and everything. Like, it's just been... The last 2 years have been the healthiest 2 years of my life in the most recent distant past. So, I just...
That's incredible.
So where's this farm at? So
we're
just not too far out of town.
Yeah,
right?
We're in Lake County in Tavares.
Okay, that's awesome.
So I know, like your parents live out in Apopka.
Yeah.
We're not too far from that.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's great. It takes me 40 minutes to get in. It's not too bad. Our kids are still in school in College Park, so.
It's so funny. I've always told Chelsea I'm obsessed with this idea of having backyard chickens. It's
Yeah.
like not appropriate where we live right now. Like I can't do it, but I was like, I want like 6 chickens because
Yeah.
I'll eat 3-4 eggs a day,
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
And you know how sometimes you get them and sometimes the yolk is yellow instead of orange,
Mhm.
or it's thin and it breaks too much. Like you can tell the quality of what you're getting, and then all you can think of is like, why is this so different? Why is the shell so thin?
Yep.
You know, like what's going on with this food?
Yeah. And until you have the opportunity to raise your own animals,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am probably your very typical American where I grew up, teachers as parents, going to school. I went to college. I played a sport. I worked, I went to Publix every day and bought my groceries, and I didn't think twice about it. We would eat fast food here and there. And so I was very ignorant to farming, like where our food comes from and what is a tomato in the grocery store versus a tomato off of a farm, or an egg out of the grocery store versus an egg out of the chicken coop. And once you start raising your own animals and growing your own food, you realize, like, why does every tomato in the grocery store look exactly the same?
Mm-hmm.
Why does every egg in that egg carton look perfectly, like they are exactly the same? They're white and they're exactly the same size. It's weird,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't think it's weird until
Yeah.
I go out to my chicken coop and I've got green eggs, brown eggs, blue eggs, white eggs. They're all different sizes. Some are speckled, some are not. Like,
Wow.
and it's just like, okay, something. Then you start realizing, I don't know what is going on behind the scenes, but something's going on behind the scenes to make it that way in the grocery store. And anyway, we can go down a rabbit hole, but.
So what does it take? I'm interested in eggs specifically. Like
Yeah.
what is those differences in maybe feed or conditions that gives you kind of those stronger yolks and better
Sure.
looking eggs than, like I remember one time we were pressing.
You're an egg
I ran into like a
fanatic.
convenience store and picked up like a 12-pack eggs.
Yeah.
And like I didn't want to finish eating them because they were
Yeah.
just so weird,
Yeah. So a lot of things, quite frankly, go into eggshell color,
Mhm.
hardness, yolk color, and like thickness. So when it comes to the eggshell, so there are different breeds of chickens that lay different colored eggs, and it all has to do with the DNA inside of it. So like we have a lot of what are called olive egger or Easter egger chickens. Americanas lay blue eggs. Now it's just like the DNA inside of them that determines the shell color. Most of the eggs that you're getting in the grocery store are either going to be all brown or all white, because they are those breeds generally are the highest producing egg layers. So a chicken during her egg laying cycle, which really they are the most productive from 5 months of age, they start laying eggs till about 2 years old. And then after 2 years, they start tapering off.
Oh, wow. It's not very long.
No. So your
Okay.
factory farms then have a decision to make about what to do with a 2.5-year-old hen. Guess what they're going to do?
No.
She gone.
Yeah. Are those still like good normal meat chickens?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be as like juicy and
Really?
tender, but you can absolutely eat them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So do you think that's like when those hens are kind of done, is that like cheaper chicken that you might buy in the grocery store? Or
I don't think you're going to ever find an egg-laying hen meat in a grocery store.
No.
Those
Okay.
are going to be.
So it's going to be those
yeah,
birds are
they're
specifically raised for that.
Yeah, they're just dispatched with and
Okay.
gotten rid of. And hopefully some farm is like using the innards. They probably don't like eviscerate them properly and then save the innards for other things or use the feathers for feather meal, but that they could do that. So chicken, if you just find a chicken out in the wild, they're going to be scratching in the dirt, eating bugs. They're omnivores. So they eat bugs, they eat grass, they'll eat insects. Like they are great little insect repellents. We don't spray anything on our farm because we have a lot of spiders just naturally out in the woods where we are, but they'll eat spiders, they eat roaches, they eat flies, they eat worms, they eat grubs. That is like their diet, their natural diet. They eat grass, they eat leaves. A lot of times when we do like tree trimming around our yard, I'll take the tree branches and just toss them in the back for them. And the goats will go through tree branches in like a couple of days. It's amazing.
awesome.
Yeah. But that is what affects the color of the yolk mostly. So when a chicken is eating just natural forage, you're going to get that bigger, yellower, dark yellow, orangey yolk that you see.
That is so neat.
Yeah. You can, a lot of times too, this is just something I have come to learn is in the grocery store, a lot of these larger producers have been enlightened to the fact that that's something consumers are looking for now is that orange or yolk because they don't color it, but you can
something
feed
that would
them.
produce the color.
Yeah, I forget what it is. Like there's some sort of flour that you can feed a chicken that will make their yolk darker.
I've been
so
duped.
It's artificially.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It is definitely more pleasing. And they still usually have the better consistency, but I kind of assumed it'd be something like salmon farming or something where they're getting that supplement additive to produce it. Maybe.
Yeah, they could be. And then in terms of like shell hardness, that's all about their calcium levels. So if they're getting a good, complete, balanced diet, their egg shells should be nice and hard. Like when you crack our eggs, you have to actually like knock them on the counter to crack them open versus the eggs, the ones out of the store, you just barely touch it on the counter and it'll crack open.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these factory farms, I mean, it's just like rows and rows and rows, thousands of chickens crammed in, and they're not getting the proper nutrients out of their diet. They're just fed grain and hope for the best. And so there's probably a lot of wasted eggs because they have to grade them, they have to wash them, they have to do all this stuff to make sure that you get every egg carton has 12 identical looking white eggs or brown eggs inside of them. So that's the difference. But I will say, like not everybody is going to be like, hey, walk down the street and grab eggs from your local farmer. I hope that we can change that for people where like everyone in downtown Orlando will know where to go to get farm fresh eggs. But if you go to Publix, like buy the organic, like something is better than nothing, right? Try and find brown eggs, or if they are selling them in the grocery store, colorful. There's one company that I found that does have some blue and brown eggs in them. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. But
how can people get your eggs? That sounded way weird than I wanted it to.
Yeah, we have. Actually, now that you said, I'm so used to talking about eggs, I don't even think about how weird that just sounded. Yeah, right. You cannot have my personal eggs, but our chicken's eggs you can have.
Thank you.
So we do pastured eggs, pastured poultry, so meat chickens.
Oh, cool.
And we also partnered with another local organic farmer, Mike Garcia, out of Ever Oak Farm. So he provides produce to us on a weekly basis. I buy it from him wholesale. I curate a menu for our subscribers, and they get to choose from the menu every week, like I want lettuce or radish or cauliflower, and then they get their eggs, and we have some breads on there, some seasonings and rubs. Like it's just a nice little menu. So if you're interested in any of that, you can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm working on a website, but I don't have that yet, and there's some licensing that goes into like selling food online that I have to work through. But _Girvin's Farm is our Instagram handle, and I can provide any information.
And those are shipped?
No, we deliver here locally.
Okay.
I can't ship across state lines yet. Again, that's another USDA regulation that I'm working through.
I find it so impressive that there was this problem, right? So like you were having health issues, nothing was working. You may have figured out what it was and you're like, okay, well, this doesn't exist, so I'm just going to create it. I think that is like somewhat typical of like the entrepreneurial journey, right? Like there's a problem, I can't find a solution, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to fix it. So tell us, let's transition to GFG.
Yeah.
How, I'm assuming you did this kind of that same mentality of there was clearly an issue and you and Claudio got together and solved it. So what does that look like?
So I started in the financial services industry in 2008. Really good timing. Yes. But I was exiting my professional golf career and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And a friend of mine that worked at Northwestern Mutual was like, I think you should sell life insurance. And I said, sure, why the hell not? I don't know what else I'm going to do. I thought I was going to be a golfer forever. So I started in 2008. Claudio and I met at Northwestern in 2015. I have my memory. And we started doing a lot of work together. We were both working in the business owner market space. He had been in the business a little bit longer than I, and so he was mentoring me on some cases here and there. We just developed a good friendship, a good professional working relationship. I got to be good friends with his wife and he with my husband. And we kept bumping into this problem where we could not serve our business owners at the level that we wanted to serve our business owners in the model that we were in.
The captive model.
Yeah. Nothing right or wrong. It's just like we were doing similar work to what we're doing now, but we were giving away all of that information for free because we had no way of charging for it appropriately under that umbrella. So we started saying like, gosh, this is frustrating, or here's what we would like to do. Here was like our vision of what we would do if we could build it our way. And finally one day we were like, let's just start looking and see what else is out there for us. And so we did some due diligence for a little while. We left in 2019 to start GFG.
Another great year.
Another great year. I'm telling you, the timing is
right, yeah,
amazing.
You're on top.
Yep, we left in November of 2019 and started
Wow.
GFG Solutions as we know it today. And then like 3 months later, sent everybody to work from home because
Did you already
Florida,
have your office?
We did. We signed a lease. I think it was November 3rd. And in March is when Florida finally caught up to the
Yeah.
COVID
Yeah.
Florida was
craziness.
chilling.
Florida was like,
They were a little late, then a little
Yeah.
early. Like they were
we're
just
like, we're gonna
kinda-
let everyone else
yeah.
take the beach, and we're gonna hang out back here and see what happens. And then, okay, I guess now we have to kind of follow suit. And so, although in financial services we were one of the essential businesses, so
Correct.
we didn't have to close the doors, but we felt just we had an obligation to our team,
Yeah.
all three of us, to like just make sure we weren't crossing a line or
Yeah.
like putting people at risk unnecessarily. There was still so much unknown at that time. So we said, all right, we're all going to go work from home for about 6 weeks. We'll come back in and sooner if necessary. But we worked from home for 6 weeks. Business kept going. But at that time, small businesses were greatly impacted, obviously, by COVID and
Yep.
doors shutting and the quick recession that happened. And all of our clients are business owners. And so there was a moment there of panic, like what are we going to do? What just happened? What kind of exposure and liability are we facing as a business owner ourselves,
Mhm.
considering that all of our clients are business owners? And the decision that I have to credit Claudia for this, I can't even say we, the decision Claudia made in that moment to stop acquiring new clients and just sit down with every single one of our clients and help them figure out how to navigate COVID and get through and thrive through successfully to the other side. We became experts at all the SBA lending programs and literally called every single one and just spent hours with them talking through worst case scenario, best case scenario, decisions here, decisions there. Do we lay off? Do we keep? How do we leverage money the right way? Can we go acquire new capital? There was a lot of programs available for funding for business owners. So we did that for the next 10, 11 months, and it just drove referrals through the roof. So we came out of COVID, fortunately, unscathed, and actually really grew because of the work that we did in that time. And so when we started in 2019, we had, I think, 4 total people on the team. Fast forward to today, and we've got 28 team members. It's kind of crazy, the growth that we've seen in the last
Well, you're literally
3 years.
busting out of your office. I visited
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, and I think your office is at the back, and they're like, "Oh no, Bernadette's over here."
Yeah.
And you were at a little table. You're letting your team use your office because your office is just exploding with people,
Yes.
and the energy is incredible. I have to commend you.
Thank you.
The scaling of those 3 years are impressive.
Yeah.
To scale that much. I'm curious, what has been your biggest lesson from the growth and towards scaling? So if someone's listening and they're like, man, I want to grow my business that much, that quickly.
Yeah.
What are a couple takeaways?
One thing I would say that is really, really important is you have to be crystal clear on what your vision for the business is so that you can articulate that repeatedly to existing team members and new people coming in. If you cannot tell them exactly who you are and where you're going, and now I would say to people all the time, I don't know what that path is going to look like. I don't know exactly how we're going to get there, but I know this is where we're going. And I need people that are up for the challenge and along for the ride. And so sourcing, selection, recruiting became a real top priority of mine, and mistakes made along the way because at times we would sacrifice our process, which I don't like the word process. I like to use experience, but for the terms of helping people understand, we developed a recruiting process, a selection process, if you will, to help us find the right talent for our organization, because I would say all the time to people, we have a lot of experience. We had been in the industry for 12 years at the time. We were well capitalized, but we were like a startup. It was organized chaos every day.
Yep.
We were trying to figure out processes and systems, and in our industry, as I'm sure you guys know, because you're in financial services essentially too, finding people with industry experience can be really helpful, but they also come with a lot of preconceived notions of how things should be.
Yep.
And particularly for us, of like people that are coming from a Schwab or a Fidelity, great. They come with the licenses. They know how to do some of the tasks that are needed to do on like the investment side, but they're used to like management levels and processes and procedures and steps.
Corporate.
And it was like, that is not how it is here. Like what
we're building that.
Right. And what is working today, we fast forward a year, does not work for us anymore because we've grown so big. So we got really, really clear on like the type of the avatar of our employees that we needed to find to be successful in the business. And that really, I would say, we've had, a few mistake hires made that weren't great. But all in all, when I look at our team today, like most of those people have been with us for 2 and 3 years already. And so
those are fun, aren't they?
Yeah.
The bad hires.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You're just like, what happened here?
I tell you, that is the hardest and sometimes funniest part of the job is like people are just,
it's
such
a lesson in human nature. Mm-hmm. And, I always say like starting a business and scaling and employees, it's a little bit like dating when you first start, in the sense that like you don't know what type of person, like what type of an employee you deserve, mm-hmm. and what type of employee you need, and what things are okay and what things are not okay.
Yeah.
So, people come in and they're capable and they're smart and the clients are happy. And then you're very shy from saying, hey, I'm miserable everywhere else in the business. And you're a little hesitant to pull that trigger. And mm-hmm. eventually they push past to a point where you're like, you got to go.
Yeah.
But I always find that an interesting part of kind of scaling and growing.
Yeah. The saying like hire slowly, fire quickly, I think is so accurate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the people that we did have to let go, or that let themselves go, like I do wish that we had just cut that cord quicker.
For sure.
Because they become energy vampires. Yeah. It can be culture eats success and growth for lunch. Mm-hmm. So like that has to be something that you protect wholeheartedly. But yeah, I think all in all, I think that's been one of the things that has gotten us to where we are and has created the success we had, outside of like Claudio being the magician that he is and being able to continue to see bigger and better clients and scale the revenue growth that way. Mm-hmm. But then on the back end, we have the support team and the service that has to happen. And I think we've done a really good job of selecting people.
Do you feel like your two skill sets, can you kind of explain like mm-hmm. what it is? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that get into partnerships, mm-hmm. and we actually talk about this quite a bit. But usually when we're talking about partnerships, we're usually talking to another married couple.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting because we're like, oh my gosh, what's it like working with your spouse? So I find it interesting that obviously you two are not married.
Yeah.
Walk me through kind of how you divided and conquered. Like what does he handle versus you,
mm-hmm.
et cetera?
In the beginning, it was very simple. Claudio had to go sell, and I had to build the team and run the business. And I mean, in the early days, it was as simple as that. Like I hardly ever saw him. He was either in meetings with clients in the office, or he was out at meetings with clients or at networking events or whatever it may be. And then I was managing the team, managing the financials, running the business, troubleshooting across, our different departments, because we had no management. I was it.
You were.
I was management. And if someone quit, all of a sudden I also became mm-hmm. the director of insurance, or I became the director of investments. And so I literally did everything post-sale within the business. And Claudia just sold. As we continued to grow, what we adopted the EOS model of traction. Have you guys, are you familiar with traction?
Absolutely.
And so there is the idea of the visionary and the integrator, or the operator, I forget what they call it. Claudio's definitely the visionary in the business. I feel like as we have grown and gotten more stable, more leadership, I have been able to step into that visionary role because I have a lot of ideas, but I still allow him to really run. Allow him. Look at me.
You're welcome, Claudia.
You're welcome, Claudia. I allow him to come to work every day. But he's still, we recognize, I should say, he is the visionary and I am the implementer. That's what it is.
I always want to use the word executor when I think about like
Yes.
executing, and then I'm like,
Sounds
that's
a
a
little
terrible
weird.
word.
It
So
sounds-
implementer is a much
implementer,
better
yes.
word than
So-
executionary. I tell people all the time, I'm like, yeah, Donovan's the visionary and I'm the executioner. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know
mean,
about that
But it
one.
could be accurate. I mean, I will say I've been the executioner before too. And then a year ago, we brought in a chief growth officer
Oh, cool.
who really, she was the expert at traction and
Mhm.
she became the implementer so that I could be like kind of sub co-visionary, kind of sub implementer. You know,
Mhm.
I was then, I remember telling Claudia, we got to a point where I was like, I can't do it all anymore. You know, like I'm managing teams, I'm managing operations, I'm managing marketing, I'm managing financials, I'm building women in wealth, I'm business development, I'm doing a podcast. Like I can't do it all anymore. And I was getting to the point where I felt like I was jack of all trades, master of none. Like I was kind of good at everything, but not really great at anything. And that's not a place where I thrive.
Yeah.
Like it makes me really uncomfortable. And so Grace came in as our chief growth officer and really was responsible for helping grow top line revenue. She was reporting up to me and helping make sure that I had a good pulse on everything that was going on. That was really my first step out of the day-to-day operations
That's a
of the
big
business.
hire.
It was a big
that
hire.
First person that's going to be that buffer between you and everybody else.
Mhm.
Have you felt like that has transformed, and like was that one of the reasons that you were able to also do the farm and things like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, Grace is an incredible talent. She has a way of keeping track of things, organizing things, following through on things like nobody I've ever seen before. I can't do it. My memory is shit. And if I don't write it down, I'll forget it 4 seconds later. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. We talked about that. So I discovered that really where the highest and best use of my time and talents is on the brand development, being out in the community. I love doing the podcast. I love going to events. I love meeting with people. I wanted to get back into meeting with clients. I had stepped out of that for so long. And so that was kind of where I was transitioning. We also were growing our family of companies at the time too. So we had GFG Benefits that launched. We had GFG Payroll that launched. Claudio and I had some private placement investments. We have an investment company that we launched. We were recruiting other advisors. So I was really stepping out of the operations aspect of the role and helping grow our ancillary business lines, overseeing still the financials, the investment company that we have, doing the podcast, doing brand and business development, growing women in wealth. And that continues to be a hard thing for me to balance because I'm so used to being in the weeds that delegating and letting go of that responsibility and not having a say has been hard.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also been really good because it has allowed Grace has come in and freed up so much time for me to focus on the areas that I really enjoy. And also like the farm has been a growing quickly business. And so I've been able to, like spend a little time there too.
I feel like another really consistent part of the entrepreneur journey is that like when you look in the mirror and you're like, shit, I'm the bottleneck in my business.
Yes.
Like I am the problem. I know that I've had a couple of those moments, and what comes after that is really important. Like for you, for example, it's a testament that you were able to make that hire, that really key hire, but that it worked after the fact, because that means that you had the scaling processes and procedures in place for her to be successful, right? Like it just speaks so much to I think you're very much a visionary, even though you don't credit yourself with it as much. But yeah, there's definitely that entrepreneurial moment where you look in the mirror and you're like, man, you can't scale if you're the bottleneck. You can't grow if you feel like shit all the time because you're doing a million things. Right. So good for you.
Yeah, I think this is something that I've struggled with in my personal journey is giving myself the credit where credit is due on ideas that I've had or thoughts that I've had. And I was very firm with Claudio. I met Grace through a mastermind that I was a part of, and I kind of recruited her away from where she was to join up. But I told Claudio, I said, man, I can't do this by myself anymore. Yeah. And if you really want to scale this thing, if we're going to go accomplish this vision that we have, we need another me. And it is so hard to find high level, not that I'm like high level leadership, but like high level leadership talent to really lead organizations, you know, and people with experience that like this really good combination of experience and emotional intelligence.
Sure.
And Grace had that. And so I was like, I know she's going to be expensive, but she's going to be worth it. And man, she has been.
So 2 businesses, GFG and the farm. What are you excited about for this year? What's coming up? What are you guys working hard on? What excites you?
So a couple of things I'm really excited about. We are going to be continuing to expand our family of companies. Our vision at GFG is to create a complete ecosystem of solutions for our business owner clients. So we want to bring our tax planning work that we do in-house. So I think we'll be launching GFG Tax at some point this year. Claudio wanted to launch it last year, and I was like, no, man, we got to like chill. So hopefully that'll come to fruition this year. We are continuing to bring in more advisors. Like I really think that's another way that we need to continue to scale is Claudio and, the handful of advisors that we have now can't be our only business developers and revenue generators. We need more people to come in and spread the gospel of GFG. Yeah. So that's another thing is like our talent acquisition. I think our industry is ripe for an overhaul and a change. And I think we're doing things very differently.
I feel like all parts of financial services, right?
Yeah.
Because when you see it, you're like, why?
Yeah.
It's not dissimilar from like the food industry and all the other things we were talking about. You're like, what is going on here? Why is everybody else not freaked out?
Right. I know. Well, and it's to some extent, I have a hard time getting too harsh about it because like I was one of those people for a long time.
You just don't know what you don't know.
Right. And then all it takes is for one person to do something a little bit differently. And then it's like, oh, there is another way. And so, but I think there are so many things in this world that we have just been doing the same way over and over and over again. And the consumer is more educated than ever. And social media has its cons for sure. But one of the pros is that information is so much more easily and readily accessible for people. And so you can't bullshit bullshitters anymore.
Right.
And so I think, those are a couple of things that I'm really excited for. And then I'm definitely going to be stepping into the farm a lot more this year. So I'm really excited about that.
Lit up when you said that. That is definitely in alignment with where you need to be because you look very happy.
I want to see some photos of this farm. I'm going to follow you to see.
Please
I
do.
love stuff
I got to
like
get
that.
these eggs is what we have to do.
Yes, you definitely do. You could probably take some back on the plane. You just have to like declare it on that little form or something.
Yeah, it's fine.
No, I'm really excited about the farm. It's continuing to grow and gaining traction. And I'm also trying not to grow. It's really funny. My husband's always like, at work, you take things very slowly. You're always telling Claudio, like, hey, let's stop and think about that. Let's slow down a little bit. Let's not do that yet. He goes, you're at the farm. You're just like buying animals before we even have a process for it.
Passion-driven for sure.
Yeah, I was like, I know. I'm sorry. He's like, just tell me what to do and I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you had to label like your ethos, your driving force that's allowed you to make all this amazing transformation in your personal life as well as businesses, what would you call it? What would you name it?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think my driving force, one of my personal core values is freedom. And so I want to build and create a life, a business that provides freedom for myself. And I don't mean freedom like I get to go do whatever I want, whenever I want. I have the freedom of time. I have the freedom to, freedom of time for me is really the most important thing because of the kids and everything that's going on. But I just have the freedom to educate my children the way that I want to. I have the freedom to eat the way that I want to. I have the freedom to build a business the way that I want to. And I want to give that gift to our team members. And so I want people to be able that work for us. While yes, they work for us, they are employees and they're earning a paycheck. I still want them to have a level of freedom in the work that they do. I want, we have house rules at GFG, and one of them is lifelong growth, dreaming. Another one is dream big, and another one's let's play. And so those are 3 of the 5. But I always encourage people like, yeah, here's how we do business. Here's our SOP for this thing. But please, like, get creative, dream bigger about how we can do something better, because our customer is our client. And at the end of the day, everything that we do needs to make that client better and happier than when they met us. And so if you can come up with a better way of doing this, please bring that to the table.
Yeah, we're all ears.
Yeah. And I want our team members to have the freedom to like not worry about taking a day off so they can go to the doctor. Like just own your time. Radical ownership is another one. Like take radical ownership in the work that you do.
Yeah.
Give the best that you can while you're here, and you're going to have the freedom to like build a life that you want. So I think for me, just like freedom is an overall theme.
Yeah, for yourself and others. I love it.
We have that big "Don't Tread on Me" flag flying out of out in front of our house.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation, Bernadette, it's been really funny because people for years have been hearing your name. Oh, you have to meet Bernadette. You're going to love Bernadette. And I don't know if it was the Woman in Wealth or why, but people have told me about you for years. And then finally, it's like coming full circle and we're here and hopefully able to partner in other ways too. So it's super exciting. And I'm just so grateful for you being on the show. I feel like we could probably talk for hours, and I hope that we can have you back because I really want to dive into the infrastructure that you built, because I think the lessons, like just that one simple lesson of like hiring the right people, establishing and empowering purpose and process and procedure. I like that you said, we don't call it process, we call it an experience. Like there's all these little things that I think our listeners would have a lot more value in if we could dive in deeper. So you have to come back.
Absolutely. Anytime.
You absolutely have to. But where can our listeners find you?
Okay. So you can follow us at GFG Solutions on Instagram. My personal handle is at the Band-T CEO. GFGsolutions.com. We have a podcast as well called Invest the Difference. So we talk a lot about these strategies. So yeah, like I'll give you all of our handles and you can link it in your show notes because there's a lot out there.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure more coming with all the other, facets of the business coming. So, congratulations on all your success.
You.
Thanks for being here.
I'm so glad. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.